People in the town would always say, "Don't underestimate someone just because they look ordinary, you never know who is watching." And that statement became true one afternoon when Officer Blake thought he could mistreat someone who didn't look wealthy or influential. He didn't know who she really was. The woman walked into the small cafe wearing simple clothes and a calm smile. No one could guess her background. Officer Blake entered moments later, loud and arrogant, showing off his badge like it gave him the right to control the world. He believed power meant he could disrespect anyone he wanted. He stopped near her table and complained about things she hadn't done. She didn't argue back. She simply asked, "Is there a reason you are speaking to me like this?" That only made him more upset. He demanded to see her ID, raised his voice and drew the attention of everyone around. Instead of finding peace in his authority, he used it to intimidate. The woman stayed calm. She didn't threaten, didn't shout, didn't fight. She only said one quiet sentence: "You should treat people with kindness. Because soon you'll understand who you're talking to." Officer Blake laughed. He was convinced she was nobody. Convinced she had no power, no protection, no position. He didn't notice the men sitting in the corner watching silently. The men who never revealed his rank, never showed his uniform when off duty. The men who led the entire police department. The chief. He saw everything. Every word. Every attitude. Blake had no idea his entire future was about to change. Everyone in the cafe fell silent when the chief finally stood up. He didn't yell. He didn't show anger. His voice was soft, yet heavy enough to shift the entire room. "Officer Blake, come here." Blake turned around and saw him. His face changed immediately. The entire cafe felt it. Things were no longer under his control. He tried to explain, tried to make excuses, but the chief didn't let him speak. "Before you say anything, let me ask you a question. How many others have you spoken to like this?" Blake kept quiet. The chief continued, "Uniforms and badges are meaningless if the heart behind them is not honest. If you can't treat people with respect without knowing who they are, you don't deserve the authority you carry." The woman finally rose from her seat and walked over. She gently placed her hand on the chief's shoulder. That's when everyone realized the truth. She wasn't just someone he needed to protect. She was his partner. The one he trusted more than anyone. The one Officer Blake had just disrespected. The chief didn't need threats. He simply looked at Blake and said, "Your career will be judged today not because of who she is, but because of who she is as a human being." Power doesn't give you permission to look down on others. It gives you responsibility to lift them up. Suddenly the atmosphere changed. Blake lowered his head. For the first time he saw what real authority looked like. Not loud, not controlling, not arrogant. Kindness had overpowered someone who thought he had everything. And everyone in the room learned a lesson they would remember forever: real strength is shown through respect. Leonard lowered the cup, heartbeat loud in his ears. "Wait," he ordered. Everyone stopped. He sniffed the drink again. That strange bitter smell, stronger now. A sudden chill washed over him. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong, and in that moment, the billionaire realized, this homeless child might have just saved his life. The moment Leonard paused, everything changed. Wealth, power, image, none of it mattered when his life hung in the balance. And the only person brave enough to warn him was the boy everyone else ignored. Leonard slowly placed the cup on the table. His fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the sudden awareness of how close he had been to disaster. "Bring it here," he told his assistant firmly. The drink was rushed to the kitchen, then to security, and finally to the hotel's emergency analysis kit. Minutes felt like hours. Darius sat in a corner, hands cuffed, still breathing hard. The guards insisted he was lying to get attention, but Leonard kept staring at him. Something about the boy's eyes, they weren't the eyes of a liar. They were the eyes of someone who had lived around danger long enough to recognize it instantly. Finally, the head of hotel security returned, his face pale. "Sir, the drink contains a toxic compound. Highly dangerous. A few sips would have, well, it would have been fatal." Gasps filled the room. Leonard's assistant nearly dropped her clipboard. And for a moment, the billionaire couldn't breathe. He was inches from death, saved only by a child who had nothing. Leonard walked toward Darius, who shrank back nervously. He expected anger, yelling, maybe blame. But instead, Leonard knelt beside him. "Why did you help me?" he asked softly. Darius swallowed. Because nobody else saw him. And I know what it looks like when someone wants to hurt people. There was pain behind those words, pain from a past no child should carry. Leonard slowly uncuffed him. What's your name? Darius, sir. Well, Darius, Leonard said, voice thick with emotion, you didn't just help me. You saved my life. For the first time in years, Darius felt seen, not as a homeless kid, not as a problem, but as a hero, and Leonard knew this was only the beginning of a story far deeper than anyone realized. Everyone expected the billionaire to call the police, give a reward, and move on. But Leonard Grant wasn't like other billionaires. Something about Darius shook him, something familiar, something painful. And that night, instead of returning to his mansion, Leonard made a decision that stunned everyone. He invited Darius into his limo. As the doors closed, the boy sat stiffly, afraid to touch anything. The leather seats were soft, the air smelled of expensive cologne, and the silence between them felt heavy. Leonard watched him closely. How long have you been living on the streets? He asked gently. A long time, Darius murmured. My mom got sick. We lost our place. Then, she didn't make it. He swallowed hard. After that, nobody wanted me. Leonard's heart twisted. He remembered his own childhood, distant parents, loneliness, pressure, the feeling of being invisible even in a mansion full of servants. And now here sat a boy who had nothing but bravery. You saved me today, Leonard said quietly. That's something most adults wouldn't do. Darius shrugged. If you see something bad, you stop it. That's just how it is. The limo pulled into the billionaire's private residence. Darius stared out the window, eyes wide at the massive gates, the glowing lights, the fountain that shimmered like diamonds. I'm not allowed here, he whispered. Leonard placed a hand on his shoulder. You are today. He walked the boy inside, past guards and marble floors, into a warm living room lit by a crackling fireplace. A house staff member blinked in shock, unsure how to react to a barefoot homeless child standing in the richest mansion in the city. Get him clean clothes, Leonard instructed. And prepare a hot meal. A full one. Darius hesitated. Sir, why are you being so nice to me? Leonard looked at him with eyes that carried years of brokenness. Because kindness is the one thing that saved me today. And I'm not letting go of it. That night, Darius slept in a real bed for the first time in years. And Leonard stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing that this boy didn't just save his life, he might have just given it meaning again. The world expected a press conference, a headline, a dramatic billionaire speech. But Leonard chose something far simpler, and far more powerful. He made Darius' family. The next morning, Darius woke to the smell of pancakes and the unfamiliar comfort of clean sheets. For the first time in a long time, he felt safe. He stepped into the dining room and froze. Leonard was waiting for him with a warm smile. Sit, Leonard said. Eat as much as you want. As Darius devoured food like he hadn't eaten in days, Leonard watched him with a mixture of sadness and pride. This child had survived things most adults couldn't. And he had the heart to save a stranger. After breakfast, Leonard made a call. Lawyers arrived. Papers were prepared. The staff whispered. Finally, the billionaire sat next to Darius and placed a hand on his shoulder. You changed my life, he said softly. And I want to change yours. If you want. I'd like to adopt you. The boy froze, fork halfway to his mouth. Adopt me. His voice cracked. If you'll let me, Leonard replied. I want you to have a home. A real one. Darius's eyes filled with tears. He had lived invisible for so long that hearing those words felt unreal. You really want me? Leonard nodded. More than anything. You're brave, smart, strong. And you deserve a life where people see that. Darius couldn't hold back anymore. He threw his arms around Leonard, crying into his chest. For the first time in his life, he felt like he belonged somewhere. In the weeks that followed, the poisoner was captured, the story spread, and the world hailed Darius as the street kid hero. But for Leonard and the boy, none of that mattered. What mattered was the moment that changed everything. A homeless child shouting, "Don't drink that." A billionaire listening. And two lost souls finding family in the most unexpected way. Sometimes heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they wear torn shirts, dirty shoes, and courage bigger than the world. And sometimes, the smallest voice saves the biggest life.